I'm really pleased to say today I've got Alan Foy with me, who is the CEO of Blueface. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you, Matt. Delighted to be here.
I know quite a lot of people know with the things you've been doing the last 2 years who Blueface are, but for those few disciples who've yet to hear, maybe you could just start by just introducing yourself and just telling us a little bit about who Blueface is.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So Blueface is a UCaaS company that basically wholesales and white labels our platform to carriers, cable cos, mobile operators, and other service providers around the world. Historically, we had a kind of a direct offering in the Blueface business. So we've optimized our own proprietary UCaaS platform and kind of full suite of what I would call kind of the value chain elements of delivering a UCaaS service in a box, if that makes sense. So really a full wrap platform and service model, basically, and we operate internationally.
And exciting news, you've been acquired recently by Comcast. And wonder if you could give us sort of any insights into what that deal's meant to you and also to some of your existing customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think first and foremost, Comcast have been absolutely outstanding, and we've got a very good, what I would say, kind of cultural alignment and fit between Blueface and Comcast. Blueface will operate as a kind of quasi-independent, standalone business within the Comcast business portfolio. We will remain Blueface branded, and we will continue basically to service white label and service provider opportunities around the world. And I guess Comcast business itself will become one of our largest customers. So we are actually, as part of our engagement, as part of our deal with Comcast, we are going to roll out the Blueface platform in Comcast business across North America.
So that's pretty exciting for you. As you're serving these wholesale customers, including Comcast, I was kind of interested. Obviously, this is a big change that you're going through, but have you seen any change in the customer requirements in the last sort of year or so? How are your customers, the wholesale customers, viewing the market? Are they looking for anything different? How are they viewing the kind of wholesale opportunity?
That's a really good question. I think what I should also mention, just in terms of the Comcast kind of backdrop, if you like, is as part of this M&A transaction, Comcast are making a very significant investment, I think, in the Blueface business, basically, to really rapidly accelerate our innovation and kind of product roadmap. And the reason I say that in the context of the question you've asked is I think increasingly end customers and enterprises and business users are getting very discerning, very, very interested in usability, in feature sets, in integrated product portfolios, part of the UCaaS stack, if you like. And I think basically there's a level where I think in cloud comms in general, we've kind of moved from this kind of, the very early adopter into the early majority. And we're kind of going into what I would call more mass market territory, I think, in general as a sector. And I think when you hit that kind of mass market and you start dealing with slightly larger customers than we all would have historically dealt with over the last kind of 15 years or so, those larger customers in particular and those end users are very, very motivated by user experience, by having features, by having mobility, by having kind of a full suite of products that kind of integrate and interoperate together, if you like, in a seamless way, not only on one platform, but into what I would say their core business processes. So if it's their internal business process, how voice communications, unified comms, video, all of that basically interplays with their business context. And I think that's where I think end users are driving a lot of innovation. I think it is market led. I think customers are driving this. And I think from our perspective, we're making big investment basically in team and in product to basically make sure that we stay ahead of the curve and are more responsive to those end user needs.
Yeah, and that's one of the themes that we're seeing with our enterprise research. We're certainly seeing a change in the enterprise in terms of what it's trying to achieve. And I think we're seeing a lot of talk around now the importance to view almost mobility first, to think more around collaboration, but what collaboration means to different type of customers isn't necessarily always the same. And a lot of value around sort of the customer engagement space for enterprises. It sounds like you're kind of hearing some of those similar things. And are there some of the areas that you're going to be kind of investing in terms of your development?
Exactly, absolutely. I think there's two kind of sides to it. One is basically what I would view as kind of enhancing customer usability, ease of use, features, just making that just very accessible, very intuitive, kind of best in breed, and constantly rolling out what I would kind of see as new product innovation. That's kind of one half of the equation. But the other half of the equation is genuinely around, as I mentioned, kind of integrations, interoperability, understanding the business environments that we're servicing, and making sure that basically the product sets we all deliver as providers are fully integrated into that business environment. It's not a case that, there's no such thing as a standalone app anymore. It has to be seamlessly integrated and also just genuinely thought through in a way that enhances overall customer usability. And I think that's a big change. I think, and by the way, I think the reason for that sectorally is I think you genuinely now are in that mass market, and I think the mass market is driving that behavior and really putting a lot more, putting it up to the providers, and say, look, well, right now, okay, the fact you have a wonderful video conferencing app is great, but actually, I've got really big demands on my business at scale, and I need you to be responsive. And I think that's probably a good thing. It definitely drives innovation. And I suppose the question then for people is, well, how can I stay ahead of that innovation curve if I don't necessarily have the in-house innovation talent? And that's why I think, obviously, from our business model, to kind of plug it a little bit, I mean, we basically try to enable those service providers to stay ahead of the curve and be as responsive as they can to their business customers.
And I guess that's where Comcast will help you a bit with it, so just in terms of the scale of investment and the size of the support from them will help you to be able to do some of those things a bit quicker than even with the best will in the world you could have done previously.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. I mean, we've gone through, as a company, we've gone through various investment rounds and we've done lots of deals, M&A and so on. But it really, from our perspective, we now have really the best of both worlds. We have this kind of innovation product hothouse that is Blueface. That's now got this very, very significant corporate parent with great reach, great focus on product and innovation actually as a company, and obviously great connections globally. So I think, yeah, you're right. It's the best of both worlds, and it'll definitely, I mean, we're really going to accelerate our roadmap dramatically, almost bring it forward by 5 years by virtue of this investment.
And are you finding that sort of, in terms of the wholesale customers, some of the service providers we'd have been talking to a few years ago who were still in the kind of build our own or manage our own, are they realizing the discussions you're having that you need to have the scale that you've now got and in the sort of innovation that I guess you can now enable to be successful? I mean, are those conversations changing from a few years ago when you were, originally sort of taking out the wholesale proposition in the early days? Are you finding that there's a change in those wholesale customers?
I think basically there's two aspects to it. I mean, there are certain companies you come across and they might be slightly smaller and they like the idea of build their own and they maybe have built something legacy, if you like, to a certain extent. And I think they're reaching the point where, well, we had these internal projects and they've kind of failed to take hold on the customer base, and we're finding it hard to stay ahead from an innovation perspective. So they're having a different dialogue now internally, saying, well, look, we haven't kept up at pace with the market. What are we going to do? So we need to partner potentially with a company like Blueface to make sure we are ahead of the curve. That's kind of one dimension of customer. And then there's the other side that, what I would say, certainly very larger customers who maybe have a particular vendor or partner in-house today, that they may have invested in a licensing model and maybe a number of years ago. And similarly, they also feel like that offering that they've got just hasn't been able to keep up with the times in terms of what customers want, and maybe feel that to a certain extent the vendors that they have just aren't as responsive to their needs. So they're also looking as well. So it has unlocked, I think, a lot of new potential for us, frankly, as a pipeline, for new business. But I mean, to your point, genuinely, I think to be best in class and have a really strong platform, in this sector requires a very, very significant level of investment. And, we've had lots of dialogue at the summit and indeed a few other summits that you've organized about the role of big mega tech like the Microsofts of this world and others. And obviously, we've always said I'd say for the last 10 years that there is certainly a role for innovation at the fringes with smaller players and smaller companies and so on. But as I say, I think because the market is now moving into fast-paced mass market, you need to have the breadth of investment and scale to achieve your global ambitions. And that's absolutely what drove us to do this deal with Comcast.
And I think we'll hear more about that at the event. And I mean, the consolidation that's clearly starting to happen now. I don't think there's anybody who's built their own platform at scale who isn't now wholesaling or working with a big partner. So I think that's going to be an interesting discussion at the event. So Just want to say big thank you for jumping on this podcast before the event. We're going to have a time to talk together during the event, so people can hear more from Alan and more insights into what is one of the main leaders of our industry and has all the battle scars to show that. So I'm looking forward to having that conversation with the event. Just a big thank you for coming on to this podcast and look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you. Looking forward to it. Thank you very much, Matt. See you soon.